So our first presentation of the day is going to be from Dr. Dave Lowy. He's our chief geoscientist at IMDEX. He's a leading voice in mining technology with a PhD in applied geochemistry. He held a job at IO Global, the R&D exploration leadership roles, and founded IO Global, a cloud-based geoscience analytic firm. Dave advocates for addressing the emerging copper supply crisis, improving public communication about mining's role in a low-carbon future, and attract new talent. His work emphasizes on advanced technologies to strengthen ore body knowledge and enhance exploration decision-making. Today, Dave is going to title is going to be Dave's Download, so anything can happen. So, Dave, please take the floor.
Thank you, Gervais, and welcome everyone. This talk was called to be confirmed up until about a week ago. Someone was meant to be here talking about the future of recruitment in our industry and the trends they're seeing and what problems or otherwise we have attracting young people in industry. Obviously, I'm not talking about that, so instead you get my normal rant about geopolitics for 10 minutes, and then I'll swap over then to technology to finish off. Now, honestly, thinking about geopolitics, I could have written this talk once a day for the last 3 months, and it would have been slightly different in every time I did it. But I'm going to go back and journey to the past. First slide, just to get everyone thinking, I like to remind people that science is science and it's not politics, so we just need to remember that as we go through the talk. Now, I showed this at the MDRU about 12 months ago, almost to the day, and it was an article in The Economist about why Canada should join the EU. It was sort of a joke back then, and then I made up my own map about what I thought was going on in the world and just provocatively saying that, you know, one outcome here geopolitically with the fight for resources would be that China would take Australia, Europe could take Africa, North America could take South America, and didn't quite know what was going to happen with Greenland nor with Russia, Iran and India. Well, that has turned out to be not quite a joke anymore. I didn't think it would be quite so prescient, but anyway, I thought it might be worth repeating. But I think it's a reminder that a lot can happen in 12 months, and especially these days. Now, a lot of you know that I'm a huge fan of Ian Bremmer and the Eurasia Group. They put out a global top risk report every year, and the top 10. These were his top risks that he put out at the beginning of last year, and I circled things in red, which I thought were particularly interesting to our industry. You might think that Ian Bremmer actually genuinely does have a crystal ball. He's pretty bloody good. And if you look at what's going on in those red boxes there, they're all pretty much spot on. The way to read the red herrings over on the side of these are the things he thinks are not at risk. He thinks they will happen regardless of what else is going on. And interestingly, although we hear a lot of noise around the global energy transition, that train has left the station and will keep going no matter what the political noise you hear around the place. The G0 wins, the first one there, that needs a bit of explanation. That was his prediction that the rules of the jungle or the law of the jungle or the strongman nature of international politics will take over. And indeed, I think he's been spot on almost to the day 12 months later. Here is his risks, just published this month, actually. And it's worth picking out a few things there, which I think are particularly relevant to our industry. The US political revolution is self-explanatory. Overpowered is not, what he's talking about there is the split in the world into the electron versus the molecule economy. So, and otherwise electrification versus the continuing use of hydrocarbons to provide most power. I can tell you 100% one of those is going to win, and it's not the molecule economy, and we will get there. And in fact, it's on us to make sure we get there as geoscientists. The US political revolution, one of his reflections on that is that you cannot fix what is already broken. So he says, it's broken, you can't break it anymore, but something will happen and it will sort itself out eventually. State capitalism with American characteristics, the things you're seeing now with direct investment in companies, especially in the US, but it's also happening with other governments as well, including here in Canada. And then the last one there has crept back on the list. I used to talk about the risk around the access to water 10 years ago, but it sort of dropped off the radar. These guys have put it back on, these guys have put it back on, and I'll get to it. I just want to talk about Mark Carney's speech at Davos just earlier this week. What an unbelievable speech. What a man of the moment. I think you Canadians, are very lucky you voted him in when you did. But to talk about what's going on in geopolitics and governments and access to resources, those quotes that you read there are incredibly powerful, but they definitely represent a bifurcation in supply chains and a great desire for self-sufficiency. I could read similar quotes that are written about Australia and elsewhere as well. I didn't think, though, that we'd be quite this polarised when we got to this point in time when we were talking about geopolitics and access to resources. To come back to the water, the first couple of quotes up there are truly, truly disturbing. Half of humanity experiences water stress at least 1 month each year, and 1.8 billion people face absolute scarcity of water. That's a chilling statement. We already have lots of day zero risks in major urbanised centres, like actually running out of water, like was what is happening in Tehran right now. Water-driven migration is already happening. We have surging energy demands, and a lot of that also requires a lot of water. And all of that's without really talking about climate change, which is just starting to accelerate and amplify the whole thing. So how is it relevant to our industry? We always get in trouble trying to build mines and with water policy, access to water, what we do with the water that we use, etc. This might not be absolutely directly relevant to that, but as soon as you start talking about water in the context of mining, it is going to enter this conversation, and it's just going to make it even more difficult. So if we're thinking about technologies, any technologies that reduces mining's reliance and use of water are going to be elevated to the top of the pile very quickly. Here's another risk analysis one's put out by Ernst & Young. They do this every year as well. This was 2025. I sort of love this slide because the things that mining companies think are important are access to capital. They think that's a risk. They sometimes say it's because people spend it on dope, mushrooms, whatever, other stocks that are flavour of the month, crypto. I argue with the industry now and I say it's because we are serial destroyers of capital is the reason we have difficulty accessing capital. So that's at the top of the list, and you'd think a lot of those other things could be solved with innovation, but that's actually at the bottom of the list. I think it's a great snapshot of the mental bipolarism of our industry. And if we come forward to 2026, it's a bit the same. So capital's still up there, rising costs, operational complexity. Yeah, maybe ore body knowledge could do something about operational complexity. It might help. But then you look down what's near the bottom again, you've got digital and innovation. So we sort of continuously enter these self-serving loops of doomism and don't do much to get out of it. So for all the young people in the room here, these are the jobs that you're inheriting and are going to have to sort out. So sorry. Geopolitical alignments, I showed this one last year, but I've made another one. That one just shows the top 5 countries by mine production, by commodity, by geopolitical alignment between the USA and China. China's over on the right. You know, you look at that and go, geez, that's a bit of a problem. Maybe the USA should be trying to make more friends, not less. But if you look here, if we look at the graph and then look at the refined production, the situation becomes even worse. And again, I'd make the point that, you know, perhaps the US needs to be thinking about making more friends, not more enemies in the world to secure not only the supply of the raw materials, but the refining of them. A lot of the discussion, you know, if there's one thing, good, positive thing that's coming out of this, is that mining is front and centre, the access to resources is front and centre, and improving the access of it for everyone. But the bit that gets left out is people are talking about we need to secure mines, we need to build stockpiles, but the harder bit is building refining capacities. No one wants smelters anymore. No one wants to make very ugly chemical refineries that separate rare earths and all the rest of it. We're just going to have to suck that up and get on with it. And just another, this is it's illustrative of what's happened in really quite a short time frame, 25 years. That's just a map with the countries of the world and who was your biggest trading partner, China or the USA back in 2001. That's 2025, right? So the world is complex and things are shifting at an incredibly fast rate, and they all impact our industry. And yet we're in the middle of a resource pricing boom. This is a little note put out by the MineWire. Those changes in commodity prices happened over Christmas. Just think about that. They wrote their last newsletter in December. They republished their first one late January, and they were the prices, the movement in commodity prices. So apart from all of these problems and things we have to think about, it's boom time, until it's not, of course, if you've been in the industry long enough. But right now it is. And going back to some other, so on a more positive note, I showed this slide, I think last year at the MDRU, about innovative technology for extracting copper. This is various types of bio-leaching with both BHP and Rio have been investing in. And just last week, we had news that Amazon is actually going to use that technology at a Rio site and source their copper by using that process because it is clean and environmental friendly, etc. So don't believe everything you read in the newspapers. The big companies are still thinking about ways to operate and process and extract things in environmentally friendly ways. And Amazon is also locking in a supply of copper, importantly, which they definitely need. So enough of geopolitics. I just want to make some comments now about frontiers in AI, but the science version. I'm not here to talk about AGI or artificial general intelligence, just science-based versions. And I'm just going to say a very brief word about Anthropic, Genesis Mission, Farmer, Darwin and Rockstein. And you're going, what the hell is that? Well, I will explain. Some of you will listen to Sabina Hoffenfelder and her YouTube channel. If you don't, it's worth listening to. She's a physicist and she's always commentating on science. And these things that she's talking about have all happened in the last couple of months. Again, the rate of change of everything is increasing. So when the rate is increasing, then you've got a true power law we're talking about with change in the world. So the top comment there, frontier models are being packaged for domains. Claude for Life Science is an example of AI being wired into scientific workflows and data sources. I'll take you to the topic of this episode of a podcast, which is AI is coming for scientists' jobs. Seriously, you need to think about this. And I prefer to think about that AI is coming to accelerate what we do as scientists. And boy, by Christ, can we do with some of that in this industry as well. So we've got Claude for Life Sciences there. So this is a shift. You read a lot about AI in the news, but I think these applications moving into engineering and scientific domains are where the money is actually going to be made. That's where it's going to move out of consumer domain and into true industrial domain and truly allow us to do some really significant advances. The Genesis mission, like this is December 2005. The Genesis mission and DeepMind is the US government's decided AI accelerated science is now a national capability and in fact a security requirement. And you can read the notes up there. But this is a massive collaborative program across 19 different government departments in the US to accelerate AI for science, not for making toys where you can ask it how to deal with your better half after you've had an argument at night and you can't work out what to do. This is actually trying to leverage that technology for science. Here's another article. This was published in The Economist just a couple of weeks ago, but it was about pharma, and it was about how AI is transforming the pharmaceutical industry. And you just look at a few of those things. I read the article. So in molecular discovery, AI can screen tens of billions of candidates in silico, so on a chip rather than doing it, for potency, solubility and toxicity. AI is compressing preclinical timelines from 3 to 5 years down to roughly 12 to 18 months. Makes a difference because pharma, as you know, is a high-stakes game. 90% of drugs fail, and the cost to fail can be 2.8 billion, or if you actually manage to develop one that works, it has a cost of 2.8 billion. Sometimes you get your money back. Now, I read that, and when I read that, I said that is a direct analogy of the exploration industry. And you think of what they're doing with technology to accelerate their success rate and shorten the timeframes where they're trying to go to. Why the F aren't we doing that? And we're going to hear some talks later on today about people starting to think about these things. So that's the bridge to exploration. Why not? And I have another example. These are some guys I met over at the University of New South Wales. It's a spin-out called Green Dynamics. That's just a page I took out of their software repository. But Darwin is the name of their science AI. It's an example of where science and materials engineering-driven is focused on the acceleration of perovskite compositions through simulation at scale. So perovskites, as you know, people are working on perovskites to improve the efficiency of solar panels. They worked out that to work out what perovskite composition to test was going to take them hundreds and hundreds of years. So they built this model. They run this at night. The dimensionality of the problem is something like n to the 22. It's some parameterization like that. They run millions of models a night, and then they go and print the perovskite the next day. How they do that, I have absolutely no idea. But they are doing things which were just strictly not possible 3 years ago. And the way they got their Darwin system to work is they ingested over 6 million publications right across the sciences and put it in there to train it. It's just an unbelievable effort. I spoke to them. They look like they're 14 years old, to me at least anyway. I'm sure they're at least 24. But it's just a couple of young guys, 24-year-olds, have done that. They've done that, right? And I just find that completely and utterly unbelievable and inspirational. So what about us? What about us? What are we doing about foundational science AI models for the geoscience? And I've got a suggestion for you just to finish up with. So our geodata is a bit different to other people's data. You know, it's sparse, it's temporal, we need to deal with the time dimension, and it's spatial. These are things that typically people working on AI projects, even data science projects, don't need to deal with. So we need a foundational science AI that has some key aspects to it, which can be hard to access, but not really. So we need global coverage, we need retrospectivity, we need to be able to go back to stuff we've had that's been collected everywhere, and we need representativity, and we need lots and lots of training data. The other Achilles heel of trying to do this work in geoscience is that we just don't have the training data, the proper training data to inform and train the science-based AI. And you think, what the hell Dave's talking about? These things, and you all know what these things are. I give talks in other forums and show them that, and they think, what is it, David, kaleidoscope? Well, sort of, yes. Well, I'm talking about thin sections, right? So we've been collecting thin sections since the 1860s. That's when we had the first rock microscopes. We went to film capture in the 40s, digital cameras in the 90s. Now we can automate the capture and generation of everything a petrologist would do looking down a very, very complex petrological microscope. So we can do some things now. There's $1 billion, I think that's a massive underestimate. It's probably more like a $10 billion sunk cost of all these materials that have been collected all around the world. The data's trapped in drawers, compactuses, people's bookshelves all over the world. The people that are able to do this work are literally dying, right? So it's a dying expertise. We run the risk of missing it. But we can take that data and turn it into an AI for geoscience as a foundational model. So what we're going to do, is build an AI for geoscience based on thin sections. I often say we're going to hear a lot about core scanning and lots of things later on. I often talk to young geos and say, have you had a look at the rock? No. You've got all of this data, all of this spectral stuff, scanning, God knows what else. Say, why don't you get a thin section cut out of it and have a look down a microscope, because that'll tell you what the bloody rock is, and then you can think about the other data. So I want to build a system so if you have a thin section, you can put it into a layered matching system. We can link it to journals like economic geology and, of course, add amplifiers, what I call pyrite or mineral chemistry amplifiers, and it will tell you what the PT path is, zones of disequilibrium, fluid rock ratios, FO2s, textures, overprinting, etc. All that cool stuff that you get from a petrography report. But for it to have an infinite memory and be able to compare and contrast any rock you pick up in the world with its massive brain that it has, and hence it's called Rockstein. So this is the project we'll be working on, a million rock geoscience AI. So watch this space. If you want to talk to me about it at any time, please do. If it's not today, send me an email. But we are looking at getting this up and running as a service back to our industry, and in the process build an AI foundation model for the industry. I had one last thing to say, but I don't have enough time, about the financialisation of tech adoption under uncertainty. If you want to hear this part of the talk, you've got to come to Brit's session. There's Brit up there. You've got to come to Brit's session during Roundup next week, and I'll expand on that. So thanks for your attention. I just wanted to get the day started with a few different themes like that, and I'll see you later on today.